touch, the something inside that we need so much. The sight of a touch, or the scent of a sound, or the strength of an oak with roots deep in the ground. The wonder of flowers to be covered and then to burst up through tarmac to the sun again, or to fly to the sun without burning a wing, to lie in a meadow and hear the grass sing, to have all these things in our memories stored, and to use them to help us to
Well, welcome everyone to another edition of Stories of the Dark. I am your host, Glen Clark, and this edition we're going to be reading stories from Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. So let's get right to it. I'm going to start out with a story called The Old Witch. There was once a little girl who was very obstinate and willful, and who never obeyed when her elders spoke to her. And so how could she be happy? One day she said to her parents, "I have heard so much of the old witch that I will go and see her. People say that she is a wonderful old woman and has many marvelous things in her house, and I am very curious to see them." Her parents, however, forbade her going, saying, "The witch is a wicked old woman who performs many godless deeds, and if you go near her, you are no longer a child of ours." The girl, however, would not turn back at her parents' command, but went to the witch's house. When she arrived there, the woman asked her, "Why are you so pale?" "Ah," replied she, trembling all over, "I have frightened myself so with what I have just seen." "And what did you see?" inquired the old witch. "I saw a black man on your steps." "That was a collier," replied she. "Then I saw a gray man." "That was a sportsman," said the old woman. "After him I saw a blood-red man." "That was a butcher," replied the woman. "But oh, I was most terrified," continued the girl. "But when I peeped through your window and saw not you, but a creature with a fiery head." "Then you have seen the witch in her proper dress," said the old woman. "For you I have long waited, and now you shall give me light." So saying, she changed the girl into a block of wood, and then threw it into the fire. And when she was fully alight, she sat down on the hearth, warmed herself, and said, "Ah, now for once it burns brightly." Quite the interesting story there to start us off. I'm going to go ahead and take our first little break here in just a second, as soon as I can get another song queued up here. We're going to take a little break, and we'll come back in just a second for the next story. This is not loading exactly the way I wanted to, so
I'm not a person.
So we'll go ahead and talk for a second. The next story I'll be reading after the break will be called The Stolen Pennies. And then after that, I'll be reading a story called The Ungrateful Son. That'll be the last story I'll play. Or I'll read for you, rather. Sorry about that. Anyway, we're going to go to music, and we'll be right back right after this. welcome back to Stories of the Dark. I am Glen Clark, your host, and the next story I'm going to read is called The Stolen Pennies. But I'd like to also mention, if you would like to comment on any of my videos, feel free to do so with your suggestions and also your suggestions for other topics that I'd like to cover here on the program. I would like to do a program very soon on EVPs, so if any of you have any of those you would like to share with me, please do so, and I'll pick out the good ones and I'll try to play them on the show, and also give credit to whoever sent them. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'll post the links to those on this video. So, next story I'm going to read for you again is called The Stolen Pennies. A father was one day sitting at dinner with his wife and his children and a good friend who had come on a visit with them. And as they thus sat, it was striking 12 o'clock. The stranger saw the door open, and a very pale child dressed in snow-white clothes came in. It did not look around, and it did not speak, but went straight into the next room. Soon afterwards it came back and went out the door again in the same quiet manner. On the second and on the third day it came also exactly in the same way. At last the stranger asked the father to whom the beautiful child that went into the next room every day at noon belonged. I have never seen it, said he, neither did he know to whom it could belong. The next day when it came again, the stranger pointed it out to the father, who however did not see it, and the mother and the children also all saw nothing. At this the stranger got up, went into the room door, opened it a little, and peeped in. Then he saw the child sitting on the ground, and digging and seeking about industriously among the crevices between the boards of the floor, but when it saw the stranger it disappeared. He now told what he had seen and described the child exactly, and the mother recognized it and said, "Ah, it is my dear child who died a month ago." They took up the boards and found 2 pennies which the child had once received from its mother, that it might give them to a poor man. It, however, had thought, "I can buy myself a biscuit for that," and had kept the pennies, and hidden them in the openings between the boards. Therefore it had no rest in its grave, and had come every day at noon to seek for these pennies. The parents gave the money at once to a poor man, and after that the child was never seen again. The next story I'd like to read for you is called The Shroud, and so let's go right to that, and it goes like this. It goes, "There was once a mother who had a little boy 7 years old, who was so handsome and lovable that he could look at him without liking him. And she herself you know what, I'm going to skip that. We're going to go to music, since I did not intend to read that one. Sorry about that. That was on my list, and I had changed it earlier before this broadcast. So let's go to some music in just a second, and I'll be right back. This is Stories of the Dark. I am Glen Clark. Be right back after this. Oh no. And welcome back to Stories of the Dark. I am your host, Glen Clark, and once again I apologize for that last story there. It was one that I was going to read and decided before the show that I would take it out, and I just started reading it anyway, like nothing was wrong. But anyway, that's the beauty of recording I guess you could say a live podcast. Things can happen like that sometimes. My last story that I'm going to read for you is called The Ungrateful Son. This one actually has more of a funny twist to it, so it's not really that scary, but it was a story that was pretty well liked, so we'll go for that one. A man and his wife were once sitting by the door of their house, and they had a roasted chicken set before them. They were about to eat it together. Then the man saw that his aged father was coming, and hastily took the chicken and hid it, for he would not permit him to have any of it. The old man came, took a drink, and went away. The son wanted to put the roasted chicken on the table again, but when he took it up, it had become a great toad, which jumped onto his face, and sat there and never went away again. And if anyone wanted to take it off, it looked venomously at him as if it would jump in his face, so that no one would venture to touch it. And the ungrateful son was forced to feed the toad every day, or else it would feed itself on his face. And thus he went about the world without knowing rest. I guess the story behind that is if you hide your food, that it'll turn into a toad and eat your face. So anyway, that's a good way to end the program for this edition. Like I said, in the coming days I want to do a show on EVPs, so if you have any or know of any good websites where I can obtain some and full credit would be given to the poster, please send those to me. My email is storiesofthedark1@gmail.com. Once again, that's storiesofthedark1@gmail.com, or you can also tweet to me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'll post all the links on the video. And once again, I thank you for listening, and until our next edition, have a good evening or good morning wherever in the world you may be. This is Stories of the Dark. I am your host, Glen Clark.